Why do some people seem to handle marathon workdays without crashing, while others burn out after just a few weeks? If you've ever believed that long hours have to mean stress and exhaustion, you're not alone. We've all heard that working harder and pushing through pain is the only path to success. But what if that's not true? What if the real problem isn't the long hours, but how we work through them? Most of us are never taught how to structure a long day or how to protect our energy and focus. Instead, we wing it, bouncing from task to task, responding to messages, fighting fires, and hoping sheer willpower will carry us through. Over time, this leads to fatigue, mistakes, frustration, and eventually burnout. But there's another way. This book is for anyone who faces big demands and long hours, whether by choice or by necessity. It's not about hacks or shortcuts. It's about building a system, a daily routine that supports high performance, protects your well-being, and helps you finish strong, not just once, but day after day. Inside, you'll learn why working longer doesn't have to mean feeling worse, how to plan your day so you get more done with less strain, and how simple habits can protect your attention and energy. You'll see how to switch up your work to stay fresh, how to match the right tasks to your natural energy, and how to defend yourself from distractions and interruptions. You don't need superhuman willpower. You need a structure that works with your brain and body, not against them. This book will give you that structure, step by step, with practical tools you can start using right away. If you're ready to turn overwhelming days into something sustainable and maybe even enjoyable, let's get started. Chapter 1: The Burnout Trap. Everything you have been told about the grind is wrong. You have likely been led to believe that the ability to work 12 hours a day is a test of willpower, a measure of how much pain you can endure before you break. You see the influencers, the billionaires, and the elite performers, and you assume they are simply better at suffering than you are. You think they have a reserve of discipline that you lack, and that if you just clenched your jaw a little tighter and drank a little more coffee, you could match their output. This is a lie. It is a dangerous, exhausting lie that is currently destroying your health, your focus, and your results. The people who sustain high performance over long days are not suffering. They are not white-knuckling their way through the 10th hour, fighting the urge to collapse. They are operating within a design. They have replaced willpower with structure. If you are reading this, you are likely ambitious. You have goals that require more than a standard 8-hour shift. You are willing to put in the work, but you are tired of the price you are paying for it. You are tired of the brain fog, the irritability, and the sinking feeling at 8 p.m. that despite being busy all day, you haven't actually moved the needle on the things that matter. You are in the right place. We are going to dismantle the myth of the heroic grind and replace it with a mechanical reality. We are going to turn your workday from a chaotic struggle into a predictable, high-output machine. The Great Productivity Deception. There is a fundamental difference between 12 hours of activity and 12 hours of productivity. Most people who claim to work long days are actually engaging in a performance of busyness. They sit at their desks for 12 hours, but their cognitive engine begins to sputter around hour 6. By hour 9, they are making sloppy decisions. By hour 11, they are merely staring at screens, rereading emails, and creating rework for their future selves. This is the 12-hour lie. It is the belief that time seeded equals value produced. The reality is that human attention does not run in a straight line. It runs in waves. Your brain is not a muscle that you can simply flex harder. It is a battery that discharges. When you try to push through a 12-hour day with raw effort, you are fighting biology. You are ignoring the cost curve of your own attention. The first few hours might be sharp, but as unstructured fatigue sets in, your output per hour plummets. You might feel noble for staying late, but if you are producing garbage that you have to fix tomorrow, you are not working. You are vandalizing your own schedule. The enemy here is not the long hours. The enemy is unstructured long hours. When you treat a marathon like a sprint, you collapse at mile 5. But if you treat it like an endurance sport, with paced effort, planned recovery, and strategic fueling of the mind, you can cross the finish line strong. The goal of this book is not to teach you how to endure misery. It is to teach you how to remove the misery so that the work remains. How the collapse actually happens. Burnout is rarely a sudden explosion. It does not arrive with a bang. It arrives with a whisper that you ignore until it becomes a scream. It starts with the burnout pipeline, a predictable sequence of systems failures that most high performers mistake for personal weakness. It begins with overcommitment. You start the day with a to-do list that is a fantasy, not a plan. Because the list is impossible, you rush. Because you rush, you skip breaks. Because you skip breaks, your cognitive load increases and your decision-making ability degrades. This is where the trap snaps shut. As your brain fatigues, you don't stop working. Instead, you start working slower and with less clarity. Tasks that should take 20 minutes start taking an hour. You begin to multitask, frantically tab switching in a desperate attempt to feel productive. This fragmentation shatters your focus, leaving you with a pile of half-started projects and zero finished deliverables. By the time the evening rolls around, you are exhausted, but you are also guilty. You look at your unfinished list and promise yourself that tomorrow you will do better. You promise you will be more disciplined. But discipline is not the issue. You cannot discipline your way out of a broken system. This cycle creates a grind identity where you start to confuse suffering with progress. You begin to wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor, telling yourself that if it hurts, it must be working. This is the mindset of a loser. Winners do not worship pain. Winners worship repeatability. If you cannot repeat your workday tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, you have not built a career. You have built a burnout factory. The cognitive cost of chaos. The reason you cannot simply push through is due to cognitive load. Your brain has a limited budget of high-quality executive function every day. Every time you have to decide what to work on next, you pay a tax. Every time you get interrupted by a notification, you pay a tax. Every time you switch contexts from a creative task to an administrative task and back again, you pay a heavy tax. In an unstructured 12-hour day, you are spending half your energy just managing the chaos of the day itself. When you operate without a system, you are forcing your brain to be both the CEO and the worker bee simultaneously. You are trying to execute complex thinking while also constantly scanning the horizon for fires to put out. This dual burden is unsustainable. It leads to a state where even easy tasks feel heavy. You find yourself procrastinating on simple emails because your decision-making circuits are fried. This isn't laziness. It is a predictable result of cognitive overload. Furthermore, the leaks compound. In a long day, a single distraction doesn't just cost you the 2 minutes it takes to read a message. It costs you the 20 minutes it takes to refocus your attention on the deep work you were doing. If this happens 3 times an hour, you are mathematically incapable of deep work. You are skimming the surface of your potential, busy but ineffective, moving fast but going nowhere. The quiet advantage of consistency. Imagine for a moment what happens when you flip the script. Imagine a day where you don't have to negotiate with yourself about what to do next. Imagine finishing your most critical work by 1 p.m., leaving the afternoon for refinement and coordination. When you stop relying on mood and start relying on a system, you unlock the long game win, professional compounding. Consistency is the quietest, most powerful force in your career. When you master the structured 12-hour day, your results stop depending on how you feel. You become a machine that ships deliverables regardless of inspiration. This builds a level of trust that is rare in the modern workplace. People stop seeing you as the person who is always frantic and swamped and start seeing you as the person who is predictable and effective. Your reputation shifts. You gain optionality. You can take on bigger projects, harder degrees, or more complex business problems because you know you have the engine to handle the workload without breaking. There is also a personal compounding effect. When you work with structure, you end the day with energy left over. You stop treating your weekends as emergency recovery chambers where you lie in a dark room trying to piece your sanity back together. You can actually be present with your family and friends because you aren't mentally replaying the unclosed loops of the day. You stop fearing the long hours because you know exactly how to navigate them. The price of ignoring structure. If you choose to ignore this reality, if you choose to continue believing that you can outwork a bad system, the consequences are inevitable. The collapse pattern will play out. Your productivity will devolve into mere activity. You will spend 12 hours moving pixels and papers, but the meaningful output will dry up. Your attention will become fragile, shattering at the slightest interruption. The emotional bill will come due. You will find your patience eroding. You will become short with your colleagues and distant from your loved ones. Motivation, that fickle friend you rely on so heavily, will stop showing up. You will start to resent the work you used to love, viewing it as a burden that never ends. Worst of all is the identity damage. When you fail to sustain the pace, you won't blame the lack of structure. You will blame yourself. You will call yourself lazy. You will internalize the failure, damaging your confidence and making it even harder to get back on the horse. You will swing wildly between extreme overwork and total crashes, losing the one thing that guarantees success: consistency. Building the machine. You are going to stop trying to be a hero. You are going to become an architect. Over the course of this book, we are going to build a 7-part operating system that will carry you through 12 hours of high performance. We will not rely on vague advice. We will install specific protocols. First, we will establish system first. We will set the rules that remove daily negotiation and define what a successful day actually looks like. We will stop budgeting our time like optimists and start budgeting our energy like realists. Next, we will create your day blueprint. This is the default template that prevents leaks. You will learn to buffer against chaos so that when the world throws a punch, your schedule absorbs it rather than shattering. We will then install focus cycles. You will stop working until you crash and start working in intervals. We will treat your attention like a high-performance engine that requires cooling cycles to maintain top speed. We will master energy timing. You will learn to map your natural biological rhythm and place your hardest work in your peak windows. You will stop wasting your genius hours on email and your zombie hours on strategy. We will implement task rotation. To prevent the mental overheating that comes from doing one thing for too long, we will sequence your tasks to keep your brain fresh. You will learn to switch gears strategically to maintain momentum deep into the evening. We will build a focus fortress. We will engineer your physical and digital environment to block distraction before it reaches you. We will create a workspace that defends your attention so you don't have to. Finally, we will close the loop with the sustainable loop. We will set up the tracking and review mechanisms that keep you on the rails for weeks and months. You will learn to spot the smoke signals of burnout before the fire starts. Amateurs wing it, pros run programs. There is a reason elite athletes live by strict routines. Think of the legends of sport, like Kobe Bryant. He didn't just walk onto the court and shoot around for 12 hours hoping to get better. He had a program. He had specific blocks for shooting, specific blocks for conditioning, and specific blocks for recovery. He didn't rely on how he felt that morning. He relied on the schedule he had built. He understood that engineered endurance always beats random intensity. The loser mindset says, "I'll figure it out as I go." The loser mindset views structure as a cage that limits freedom. The winner understands that structure is the only thing that creates freedom. By constraining your day, you liberate your mind to focus entirely on execution. You stop worrying about when you will do the work and start simply doing the work. You are about to build a system that will make the right move the easy move. You are about to prove to yourself that you can handle a workload that would crush an unstructured person, and you can do it without destroying yourself. But before we can build the schedule, we have to fix the rules of engagement. You cannot win the game if you are playing by a set of broken laws that guarantee failure before you even open your laptop. There is a silent negotiation you have with yourself every single morning, a subtle mental bargain that drains your battery before the day even begins. In the next chapter, we are going to end that negotiation permanently. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, System First. You are likely sitting there right now, staring at a calendar that looks more like a battlefield than a schedule, wondering why you can't just force yourself to stick to it. You wake up with the best intentions. You tell yourself that today is the day you will grind for 12 hours straight, crush every task, and finally get ahead. But by 2 p.m., the resolve fades. The distractions creep in. You find yourself bargaining with your own brain, promising to make up for lost time later in the evening. You think the problem is that you are weak. You think you lack the grit to sustain the pace. You are wrong. The problem isn't your character. The problem is that you are trying to run a marathon without a map, water stations, or a pacing strategy. You are relying on a resource that is biologically designed to fail you: willpower. Willpower is a spark, not a fuel source. It is great for starting a sprint, but it is terrible for sustaining a 12-hour siege. If you want to work long days without burning out, you have to stop treating your workday as a test of moral fortitude and start treating it like an engineering problem. You need to stop trying harder and start designing better. This chapter is about the shift from internal struggle to external structure. We are going to install a set of operating rules that remove the need for constant self-control. We are going to build a machine that carries you through the day so you don't have to drag yourself across the finish line. The flaky friend called motivation. Let's be honest about motivation. It is a terrible manager. It shows up late, leaves early, and disappears the moment things get difficult. If you build a 12-hour workday on the foundation of feeling like it, you are building on quicksand. The brutal truth is that human biology is not wired for 12 hours of continuous, high-intensity focus. We are wired to conserve energy. When you rely on motivation, you are asking your brain to fight its own survival instincts every single minute of the day. That fight is exhausting. Every time you have to decide what to do next, you burn a little bit of glucose. Every time you have to negotiate with yourself about whether to check your email or finish that report, you deplete your mental battery. This is called decision fatigue. By the time you reach the halfway mark of your day, you have made so many micro decisions that your brain simply refuses to make any more. That is when the small quits happen. You open a new tab, you stare out the window, you pick up your phone. You aren't lazy, you are just out of decision-making fuel. A system solves this because it pre-decides the day for you. When you have a system, you don't have to ask yourself, what should I do now? The answer is already there. The rules are already set. Systems create stability under stress. When the pressure mounts and your energy dips, a system acts like a set of rails. It keeps you moving forward even when the engine, your motivation, is sputtering. The compounding payoff here is massive. Fewer decisions mean less fatigue. Fewer negotiations mean more execution. You stop wasting energy on figuring out how to work, and you pour all of that energy into the work itself. The budget you didn't know you had. The core theory we are operating on here is something called work capacity budgeting. Most people plan their days as if they have an infinite supply of high-quality attention. They schedule 6 hours of deep, complex problem-solving back-to-back, followed by 3 hours of intense meetings, followed by another 3 hours of creative work. This is a fantasy. It is like trying to drive a car for 1,000 miles on a 10-gallon tank of gas. You have a limited number of high-quality attention hours in a day. This is your scarce resource. Everything else in your day must be structured to protect that resource. Burnout happens when you spend from tomorrow's energy to pay today's bill. You push past your biological ceiling, borrowing capacity from the future. You do this day after day until the debt becomes so large that your system declares bankruptcy. That is what a burnout crash is. To solve this, We have to replace the vague goal of working all day with the specific practice of budgeting your cognitive load. We have to distinguish between heavy thinking, the work that requires deep focus and synthesis, and light tasks, the administrative, low-stakes work that keeps the lights on. You cannot treat these hours as equal. A system forces you to acknowledge your true capacity, not the capacity your ego wishes you had. It forces you to build a day that respects the limits of your engine so that you can drive it at top speed without blowing a gasket. The lies that keep you exhausted. Before we install the rules, we have to dismantle the myths that are currently sabotaging you. The biggest one is the idea that if you were just disciplined enough, you wouldn't need a system. This is backward. Discipline is not a replacement for structure. Structure is what discipline runs on. Discipline is the fuel, structure is the engine. If you pour fuel onto the ground and light it, you just get a fire. If you put it in an engine, you get forward motion. Without structure, your discipline just burns you out. Then there is the myth that more hours automatically mean more output. This is the factory mindset applied to knowledge work. In a factory, standing at the assembly line for 12 hours produces 50% more widgets than standing there for 8. In cognitive work, this math breaks down. Past a certain point, additional hours produce diminishing returns. You start making errors. You start creating work that needs to be redone. The goal of this book is not suffering per hour. It is output per hour. We are designing a 12-hour day to maximize the volume of high-quality work, not to maximize the amount of pain you feel. Finally, you must abandon the idea that breaks are for weak people. In the context of a 12-hour day, a break is not a cessation of work. It is a tool for performance. It is maintenance. If you were driving a race car, you wouldn't skip the pit stop to show how tough you are. You would take the pit stop because you know that driving on bald tires leads to a crash. Skipping brakes is like driving with the check engine light on. It works for a while, and then the engine explodes. Installing the operating rules. Now we build the machine. We are going to establish 3 non-negotiable operating rules that will run your day. These are not suggestions. They are the laws of your new country. The first law is the fixed start and fixed stop. You might think a fixed stop time limits your productivity, but it actually protects it. A fixed stop time creates a container for your work. It forces urgency. If you know the day ends at 8 p.m., no matter what, you stop procrastinating at 2 p.m. More importantly, it protects your recovery. If your work bleeds into your sleep time or your decompression time, you wake up tomorrow already in debt. You need a hard border between on and off to ensure that on actually means fully engaged. The second law is fixed focus cycles. We will dive deeper into the mechanics of this later, but the rule is simple. You never work indefinitely. You work in defined blocks of time, separated by defined blocks of recovery. This protects your attention quality. It prevents you from sliding into the zombie zone where you are staring at the screen but processing nothing. You commit to the cycle, not the feeling. If the timer says work, you work. If the timer says rest, you rest. The third law is fixed communication windows. This is the rule that protects your deep work. Most people live in a state of constant partial attention, keeping their email and chat apps open all day. This destroys your ability to do heavy thinking. The rule is that you only process communication during specific scheduled windows. Outside of those windows, you are unreachable. You are in the bunker. This allows you to string together hours of uninterrupted thought, which is where the real value is created. The high-octane ceiling. With your rules in place, you need to budget your fuel. You are going to perform a quick mental exercise called the capacity budget. First, look at the tasks you need to do. Categorize them. Which ones are heavy fuel tasks? These are the things that require synthesis, creation, complex problem solving, or learning. Which ones are light fuel? These are meetings, emails, data entry, and coordination. Now, set a daily ceiling for your heavy fuel tasks. Be realistic. Most humans, even elite performers, have a maximum of about 4 to 5 hours of truly deep, high-intensity cognitive capacity in a day. If you try to schedule 8 hours of heavy fuel work, you will fail. You will crash. You must place these heavy tasks only inside your protected windows where you have the most energy. Once you hit your ceiling, you switch to light fuel tasks. You treat that ceiling as a law. Going past it, it doesn't prove you are strong, it proves you are reckless. It triggers a recovery debt that you will have to pay back with interest tomorrow. The crash protocols. Even with the best system, chaos will happen. You will wake up groggy. An emergency meeting will blow up your morning. You will hit a wall of brain fog at 4 p.m. The amateur panics when this happens. The amateur tries to sprint to catch up, which only leads to more mistakes. You are going to install an if-then rescue protocol. This is a pre-programmed response to failure. If you fall behind schedule, then you cut scope, not recovery. You do not skip your break to catch up. You look at your task list and ruthlessly eliminate the non-essentials. You settle for a good enough version of a secondary task so you can nail the primary one. If you feel scattered and unable to focus, then you return to the structure of the next scheduled session. You don't wallow in guilt. You wait for the next block to start, and you begin again. If interruptions spike and the world is demanding your attention, then you shift into fortress mode, a concept we will explore fully later. The point is that you have a plan for when things go wrong, so you never have to make a panicked decision in the heat of the moment. The new scoreboard. Finally, you need to redefine what a 12-hour day actually means. For the amateur, it means sitting in a chair for 12 hours. For the pro, it means 12 hours of effective execution. Presence does not equal performance. You need to change your scoreboard. Your new standard is simple: deliverables plus deep blocks. Did you ship the thing you said you would ship? Did you complete the high-intensity focus blocks you scheduled? If the answer is yes, you had a successful day, even if you spent an hour staring at the wall during a break. If the answer is no, you failed, even if you sat at your desk until midnight. You must detach your sense of self-worth from the clock and attach it to the output. Tricks of the trade. To make this stick, you need to reduce friction. Make the system visible. Write your 3 operating rules on a piece of paper and tape it to your monitor. Do not trust your memory. Create a start ritual that triggers your focus automatically. Maybe it's putting on headphones, pouring a specific drink, or clearing your desktop. This signals to your brain that the machine is turning on. Reduce decision friction by pre-deciding your first task the night before. Never start a 12-hour day wondering what to do first. That question alone can derail your morning. Use default sequences. If you know that after a deep work block, you always do an admin block, you don't have to decide. You just flow from one to the other. Keep your rules firm, but your schedule flexible. You can move a block of work from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. if an emergency happens, but you cannot delete the block, and you cannot delete the recovery that follows it. The path forward. If you implement this, the outcome is not just more work done. It is a different kind of life. A good outcome is 8 or 9 effective hours with a stable mood. You stop crashing. You stop snapping at people. An excellent outcome is 10 or 11 hours of predictable pacing where key deliverables are finished before the sun goes down. The best outcome is a full 12-hour day that feels structured, not punishing, a day you can repeat for weeks because the system protects you from yourself. But be warned, the most common mistake is going too big, too fast. You will be tempted to design the perfect Spartan schedule on day 1. You will try to run at 100% efficiency immediately. This will lead to a crash by day 3 and dread by day 4. Start with a 9-hour structured day. Prove you can run the system, then extend it. Do not fall for the trap of fake productivity where you are busy but shipping nothing. And do not let rigid perfectionism destroy you. If one disruption ruins your whole day, your system is too brittle. It needs buffers. We have established the rules. We have built the engine. But an engine is useless without a chassis to hold it together. You have the laws, but you don't yet have the map. You know how to operate, but you don't know what the day itself should look like. How do you actually arrange 12 hours of time so that the pieces fit together without friction? How do you handle the messy reality of meetings, unexpected calls, and the natural dips in your energy? The rules are the software. Now we need to build the hardware. We need a blueprint that can survive contact with the real world. In the next chapter, we are going to construct the actual skeleton of your day, a 3-lane highway that keeps your tasks from crashing into each other. Chapter 3, Day Blueprint. You know the feeling. You sit down at your desk with a vague sense of ambition. You have a mental list of things you want to crush today. You feel ready. Then, a notification slides across your screen. A colleague asks a quick question. You open your email just to check the landscape. Suddenly, you look up at the clock, and it is 2 p.m. The morning is gone. The big project you swore you would finish hasn't been touched, and you are exhausted from 4 hours of reactive firefighting. You didn't run the day ran you. This is the default state of modern work. The world is an entropy machine designed to fracture your attention and steal your time. If you enter a 12-hour day without a hardened structure, you are walking into a riot without a shield. You might think you need more willpower to resist the chaos, but you are wrong. You need a map. You need a blueprint that survives contact with reality. In this chapter, we are going to convert the work-all-day mindset into a clear, repeatable plan. We are going to build a default day template that accounts for the messy reality of meetings, interruptions, and low-energy dips. We are moving away from the fantasy of a perfect schedule and building a schedule that keeps you moving even when the day throws a punch. The defense of time. Most people treat their calendar like a suggestion box. They let other people shove meetings into their prime hours. They let their inbox dictate their priorities. They operate as on-call firefighters, waiting for a crisis to solve rather than an objective to execute. When you live like this, your brain is constantly scanning for threats. This state of hypervigilance burns through your cognitive fuel before you even start your real work. Planning is not about controlling every minute. You cannot control the external world. Your boss will still call, the server will still crash. Planning is about protection. A blueprint protects your deep work windows from being cannibalized by urgent but unimportant noise. It protects your recovery windows so you don't burn out by Thursday. It protects your shutdown time so you can actually have a life. The theory here is constraint-based planning. When you leave your day open-ended, your brain wastes energy trying to decide what to do next. It looks for the path of least resistance, which is usually checking Slack or doing busy work. When you apply constraints, when you say, "This hour is for this task only," you remove the decision fatigue. You create a container for your focus. Attention behaves like a gas. It expands to fill the space available. If you give a task all day, it will take all day. If you give it a 2-hour block in a blueprint, you sharpen your focus to fit the container. The freedom trap. You might be resisting this. You might be thinking that a rigid schedule will kill your creativity or your freedom. You tell yourself that a flexible day is a free day. This is a myth. Flexibility without structure is just chaos in disguise. When you have no boundaries, you become reactive to everything. True freedom comes from boundaries. When you know exactly when you are supposed to be doing deep work and exactly when you are supposed to be answering emails, you are free from the guilt of not doing the other thing. Another trap is the belief that a to-do list is enough. A to-do list is not a plan. It is a menu of infinite obligations with no context of time or energy. A list doesn't tell you that task A requires your best brain power, while task B can be done while you are half asleep. A list doesn't defend your time, it just catalogs your burdens. Relying on a list often leads to snacking on easy tasks while the big scary deliverables get pushed to tomorrow. Finally, stop planning in your head. Your working memory is for processing information, not for storing a schedule. When you try to juggle your timeline mentally, you are burning the very fuel you need to execute the work. You need to externalize the plan. You need to get it out of your head and onto a structure that you can see. Constructing the 3-lane highway. To build a blueprint that actually works, we are going to use a model I call the 3-lane day. Imagine your day as a highway with 3 distinct lanes. If you try to drive in all 3 lanes at once, you crash. If you let the slow trucks block the fast lane, you get nowhere. You need to separate your traffic. Lane 1 is deep work. This is high-value creation, complex problem-solving, and the work that actually moves your career forward. This traffic belongs in the fast lane, and it requires a clear road. You cannot have stop-and-go traffic here. Lane 2 is coordination. This is the merging lane. It includes meetings, calls, Slack threads, and emails. This work is necessary, but it is disruptive. It breaks your flow. Lane 3 is admin. This is the slow lane. It is the maintenance work, filing expenses, organizing folders, updating tickets. It requires very little cognitive horsepower. Your blueprint's job is to keep these lanes distinct. You never mix Lane 1 and Lane 2. You don't answer emails in the middle of a deep work block. You batch your coordination into specific windows so that the rest of the highway remains clear for speed. To hold these lanes in place, you need anchors. These are the immovable blocks in your day. You need a start anchor, a ritual that ramps you into focus. You need at least 2 deep work anchors, protected blocks of time placed in your peak energy windows. And you need a shutdown anchor, a hard stop that forces you to close the loops and disconnect. The anti-chaos layer. Here is where most schedules fail. They assume a perfect world. They pack every minute with activity, leaving zero margin for error. Then one meeting runs late, and the dominoes fall. The entire day collapses. To fix this, we install buffers. A buffer is a block of time assigned to nothing. It is the shock absorber of your day. You place buffers between your lanes. You put a 15-minute buffer after a meeting block before you attempt deep work. You put a 30-minute buffer in the late afternoon to catch the overflow. Buffers prevent domino delay. If a call runs over, it eats the buffer, not your deep work. If a crisis pops up, you have a pocket of time to address it without destroying your main deliverable. The winner budgets for disruption. The loser hopes for quiet. The blueprint drill. You are going to operationalize this with a simple 10-minute ritual called the blueprint drill. You do this every single morning, or ideally, the night before. First, choose one must-ship deliverable. Not 3, not 5. 1. This is the thing that, if finished, makes the day a success. If you have 10 priorities, you have 0 priorities. Second, assign that deliverable to your first deep work anchor. Put it in the calendar. That block is now sacred ground. Third, place your coordination windows. Do not sprinkle meetings like confetti across your day. Batch them. Squeeze them into a defined block in the early afternoon or late morning. Create a communication container so the rest of the day stays clean. Fourth, place your admin tasks in your low-energy slots. Usually, this is the late afternoon dip when your brain is tired, but your hands can still move. Fifth, add your buffers. Look at the transitions between lanes and insert the shock absorbers. Sixth, write a one-line definition of done for your main deliverable. Work on the report is not a definition. Complete the executive summary draft is a definition. Vague goals create vague effort. Specific goals create finished products. The parking lot rule. Even with a blueprint, your brain will try to sabotage you. You will be in the middle of a deep work block, and you will remember that you need to call the dentist. Or you will have a brilliant idea for a different project. The impulse to switch tasks will be strong. You must install the parking lot capture rule. Keep a notepad or a digital document open on the side. When a new task or idea intrudes, you capture it in the parking lot immediately. You write it down, and then you instantly return to your lane. You do not do the task. You do not explore the idea. You simply trap it so your brain can let it go. You review the parking lot only at your next scheduled planning checkpoint. This keeps you from driving off the road every time you see a shiny object. Tactical momentum. To make this blueprint stick, you need to trick your brain into compliance. Start your day with a first win. This is a small, finished output early in the morning. It could be clearing a specific difficult email or drafting one paragraph. Momentum is a physical force in productivity. Winners stack proof of their competence early in the day. Losers stack promises they haven't kept yet. Use outcomes language on your calendar. Instead of writing Project X in a time block, write Finish Project X outline. Activity language allows you to hide. Outcomes language forces you to ship. Keep your meetings in a box. Meetings are a gas that expands to fill the container. If you schedule an hour, it takes an hour. If you schedule 30 minutes, you get it done in 30. Put them in lane 2, and when the lane ends, the meetings end. The resilient schedule. If you do this right, you will achieve a good outcome. You will end the day with the right work done, not just more work touched. You will have fewer restarts because your next action is always clear on the blueprint. An excellent outcome is when your deep work blocks happen consistently, even on chaotic days. Your schedule becomes resilient. When a fire breaks out, you handle it in a buffer or a coordination window, and your deep work remains untouched. The best outcome is a template you can run on autopilot for weeks. You stop spending energy deciding when to work and start spending energy on the work itself. But be careful. The most common pitfall is the overpacked schedule. You will be tempted to fill every white space on your calendar. You will be behind by 11 a.m. every day. The fix is to remove 20% of what you think you can do and add buffers deliberately. If you don't schedule the buffers, reality will schedule them for you, usually in the form of a crisis. Another danger is planning paralysis. You can spend 45 minutes color-coding your calendar and call it work. That is procrastination. Cap your planning session at 10 minutes. Choose the must-ship deliverable, lock the blocks, and move. The missing engine. You now have the rules of the system, and you have the blueprint of the day. You have the lanes, the buffers, and the anchors. You know where the car is supposed to go. But a map is not movement. You can have the perfect schedule on your screen, but if you cannot sustain your focus inside those blocks, the blueprint is just a pretty drawing. You are still facing a biological reality. Your brain cannot run at redline for 12 hours straight. Even with the best plan, if you try to grind through the deep work blocks without a mechanism for energy renewal, you will stall. You need an engine that can handle the distance. You need a way to pulse your effort so that you are as sharp in hour 10 as you were in hour 2. We need to talk about the rhythm of your attention. We need to stop looking at time as a solid block and start looking at it as a pulse. In the next chapter, we are going to install the engine that drives the blueprint. We are going to learn how to run your brain like an interval sprinter, not a marathon plotter. Chapter 4, Focus Cycles. Your brain is lying to you. It tells you that if you just stare at the screen long enough, the work will get done. It tells you that stopping, even for 5 minutes, is a sign of weakness, a surrender to the mounting pressure. You believe that the zone is a place you can inhabit for 12 hours straight if you just try hard enough. So you sit there, you grind, you white-knuckle your way through the afternoon, and then, inevitably, you crash. You look up at the clock, and hours have passed, but your output is pathetic. You are rereading the same paragraph 3 times. You are making simple calculation errors. You are clicking between tabs, looking for a dopamine hit because your executive function has left the building. You aren't working, you are just bleeding time. This is where the amateur fails. The amateur thinks endurance is about how long you can hold your breath underwater. The professional knows that endurance is about how well you manage your oxygen. If you want to sustain high performance for 12 hours, you have to stop trying to be a marathon runner who never stops to drink. You have to start operating like an interval sprinter. You need to build an engine that pulses. The fatigue tax you don't see. The reason long days usually fail is not a lack of ambition, it is unmanaged fatigue. We tend to think of fatigue as a physical sensation, heavy eyelids or a yearning for sleep, but in knowledge work, fatigue is far more insidious. It masks itself as confusion. It masks itself as writer's block. It masks itself as a sudden, overwhelming urge to check social media. When you push your brain past its effective limit without a reset, you begin to pay a fatigue tax. A task that should take 20 minutes of sharp thinking starts to drag on for an hour of sluggish processing. You are paying 3 times the time cost for the same result. Worse, fatigue makes distractions feel necessary. When your cognitive control weakens, the barrier between I should work and I should look at this notification dissolves. You aren't undisciplined. You are just chemically depleted. This leads to the death spiral of the long day, rework. Because you are tired, you make sloppy mistakes. You send the email without the attachment. You miss the logic error in the code. You overlook a critical detail in the report. Tomorrow, you will have to spend your fresh energy fixing the mess you made today while you were exhausted. This is how 12-hour days turn into 14-hour days and how careers burn out. The architecture of the interval. The solution is to stop treating your day as one long, continuous block of time. That is a recipe for disaster. Instead, you must break the day into a series of sprints. We call this focus session architecture. You are going to run your day in intervals. Push, recover, push, recover. This works because human attention is cyclical. We have a biological rhythm. We can sustain high-quality, intense focus for a specific duration, usually between 50 and 90 minutes before our neurological resources deplete. Once you cross that threshold, your error rate spikes and your insight drops. By scheduling a break before you hit that wall, you reset the clock. You clear the attention residue that builds up in your mind. Think of it like a high-performance car. You can redline the engine for a while, but if you never shift gears and let the RPMs drop, you will blow a gasket. Breaks are not optional in endurance work. If you don't schedule recovery, your body will schedule a collapse. Winners rest on purpose because they know it protects their output. Losers rest by accident when they inevitably burn out. The lies that keep you grinding. You are likely resisting this idea right now. You are thinking, but if I stop, I'll lose my flow. This is the myth that breaks kill momentum. The truth is exactly the opposite. Breaks preserve momentum across the span of the day. Without breaks, your momentum naturally decays into a slow crawl. With breaks, you can maintain a high average speed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You might also tell yourself, I'll rest when the work is done. Let's be brutal here. The work is never done. The inbox will never be empty. The project list will never be zero. If you wait for the work to end before you recover, you will never recover. You must decouple your recovery from your completion. You rest because the timer says so, not because the task is finished. Then there's the ego trap. If I can't focus for 4 hours straight, I'm weak. No, you are human. The elite performers, the musicians, the athletes, the chess grandmasters, they all practice in intervals. They know that intensity requires recovery. Trying to focus for 4 hours straight isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign that you don't understand how your own brain works. Locking in the cycle. So how do you actually build this engine? You start by choosing a cycle length that you can sustain with high quality. Do not try to be a hero on day one. Stability is more important than length. A classic, sustainable rhythm is the 50-10 split. You work with single-minded intensity for 50 minutes and then you disconnect completely for 10 minutes. If you have a slightly higher tolerance, you might try 60-10. If you are doing deep, complex work that requires a lot of mental loading, you might go for 75-15, but pick one. Commit to it. This ratio is your lifeline. To execute this, you need to perform the cycle lock. It is a simple discipline, but it requires rigor. First, you set a timer. Do not look at the clock. Use an actual timer that counts down. Second, you define one clear outcome for that session. Not work on project, but write the introduction. Third, you work on that single task until the timer goes off. No phone, no email, no switching. When the timer hits 0, you stop. Immediately. You do not bargain. You do not say, just one more sentence. You stand up and walk away. This hard stop is crucial. It creates a Zeigarnik effect, a psychological tension that makes your brain eager to return to the task. If you work until you are exhausted and bored, you will dread coming back. If you stop while you still have momentum, you will be pulled back into the work effortlessly. The art of re-entry. The danger of intervals is the cold start. You worry that if you stop, you will spend the first 10 minutes of the next block trying to figure out where you were. This is a valid fear, but we can solve it with a technique called re-entry speed. Before you stand up for your break, take 30 seconds to write a next action note. Leave it right in the middle of your screen or on top of your notebook. It should be a command to your future self. Write the paragraph about the budget variance. Compile the code for the login module. When you return from your break, you don't have to think. You read the note and you execute. You bypass the hesitation and the ramp-up time. You are back at full speed within seconds. This allows you to chain together multiple cycles without losing efficiency. You also need to incorporate one longer recovery period into your day. Usually this happens between your major lanes, perhaps after a streak of 3 deep work cycles. This is a 30 to 60-minute block where you completely detach. This prevents the late-day spiral. It acts as a fire break, stopping the accumulated stress of the morning from burning down your afternoon. Protecting the pulse. Your intervals will only work if they are protected. You cannot run a sprint if someone trips you every 10 meters. You must enforce boundaries during your focus sessions. This ties back to the focus fortress we will build later, but for now, use visible signals. Headphones on means do not disturb. A closed door means come back later. During the break, you must actually rest. This is where most people fail. They stop working, but they immediately pick up their phone and start scrolling through social media. This is not a break. This is just blasting your brain with a different kind of information noise. You are switching from cognitive load to sensory overload. A real break must be low stimulation. Stand up, move your body, look at a wall, let your eyes adjust to a different focal length. You need to let the dust settle, not kick up a new storm. When the system shakes, there will be days when you fall behind. The pressure will mount, and your instinct will be to throw the cycles out the window and just push. This is the loser's move. When you are behind, you do not cut recovery, you cut scope. You tighten the definition of what needs to be done. You protect the engine because if the engine blows, you aren't finishing anything. You might find that your breaks turn into derailments. You take 10 minutes, but then you get distracted, and suddenly it's been 40 minutes. The fix here is the timer. The timer signals the start of the break, and it signals the end. When the alarm sounds, you sit down. You treat the return to work with the same military precision as the start of the break. If you find that your quality is dropping halfway through a block, your sessions are too long. Shorten them. There is no shame in a 25-5 cycle if that is what keeps you sharp. The goal is not to boast about how long you can focus. The goal is to produce excellence. Adjust the dial until you find the rhythm that keeps your output steady. The missing variable. You now have a powerful machine. You have the rules that govern it, the blueprint that maps its path, and the engine that drives it forward in powerful, rhythmic bursts. You can feel the difference already. You aren't dragging yourself through the mud anymore. You are pulsing with purpose. But there is a flaw in your plan. You are treating every hour of the day as if it were worth the same amount. You are scheduling your focus cycles based on time, but you are ignoring the biological reality of your energy. You are likely taking your most difficult, brain-melting tasks and slotting them into time blocks where your brain is naturally operating at 50% capacity. You are trying to sprint uphill when you could be coasting downhill. You have the engine, but you're driving it in the dark. You don't know the terrain of your own biology. What if I told you that you could get double the output from the same amount of effort simply by moving a task 3 hours to the left? What if the secret to the 12-hour day isn't just how you work, but when you work? The clock on the wall is objective, but your body is subjective. In the next chapter, we are going to map the invisible waves of your energy and stop wasting your genius hours on stupid work. Chapter 5, Energy Timing. Stop pretending that 2 p.m. is the same as 9 a.m. You look at the clock, you see the numbers, and you assume that an hour is an hour. You assume that 60 minutes of effort in the afternoon yields the same result as 60 minutes of effort in the morning. This assumption is the reason you are exhausted. It is the reason you feel like you are wading through concrete by mid-afternoon. You are trying to drive a high-performance vehicle at top speed while the fuel tank is empty, and then you are idling the engine when the tank is full. You have built the system, you have the blueprint, you have the focus cycles, but if you plug the wrong tasks into the wrong slots, the machine will grind to a halt. You will spend your genius hours answering trivial emails, and you will spend your zombie hours trying to solve complex strategic problems. This is not a discipline issue. It is a timing issue. This chapter is about leverage. We are going to stop fighting your biology and start using it. We are going to map the invisible waves of your daily energy and place your work so that the current carries you, rather than you paddling against it until you drown. The force multiplier. There is a hidden tax you pay every time you ignore your body's rhythm. When you try to force deep analytical work during a low-energy dip, you are not just working slowly, you are working dangerously. The cognitive load feels twice as heavy, but your output is riddled with errors. You miss details. You make logic leaps that don't land. You write sentences that you will have to rewrite tomorrow. This is the stupidity tax of bad timing. Conversely, when you match your highest intensity work with your highest natural alertness, you get a force multiplier effect. 1 hour of peak state work is worth 3 hours of low state grinding. The winner understands that energy is a finite resource that fluctuates. The loser treats energy like a flat line. The loser burns their best mental capital on clearing the deck, responding to Slack messages, checking the news, organizing folders, and then wonders why they have no firepower left for the actual mission. You don't need less work. You need smarter placement. You don't need more motivation. You need to stop asking your brain to sprint when it wants to walk and stop letting it walk when it is ready to sprint. The myth of clearing the deck. Before we map your day, we have to kill the most dangerous myth in productivity, the idea that you should start your day by getting the small stuff out of the way. It sounds logical. You want to feel organized. You want a clean slate. So you open your inbox, you reply to the quick questions, you check the notifications, you tell yourself you are warming up. This is a lie. You are not warming up. You are donating your peak hours to other people's priorities. For most people, the first few hours of the day are the cognitive peak. Your brain is fresh, your synaptic connections are firing, and your ability to handle complexity is at its highest. When you spend that gold on email, you are flushing value down the toilet. Clearing the deck is an infinite game. There will always be more deck to clear. Shipping a deliverable is a finite game. The other myth is the ego trap of the grind. You think, if I'm tired, I should force myself to do the hard work to prove I'm strong. That is not strategy. That is vanity. Winners conserve power for the moments it matters. They don't try to set personal records for suffering. They try to set personal records for output. If your brain is in a dip, you don't force a breakthrough. You switch tactics. Mapping your reality. We are going to build an energy map. This is not a complex scientific study. It is a brutally honest assessment of your reality. You're going to look at your day in 1-hour chunks and label them high, medium, or low. High energy is when you feel sharp, optimistic, and capable of holding complex ideas in your head. For many, this is the morning. For some, it is late at night. Find it. This is your peak window. Medium energy is when you can work, but you aren't setting the world on fire. You can edit, you can plan, you can structure. Low energy is the dip. This is when you feel the fog. You read a sentence and have to read it again. Your patience is thin. This is your dip window. Do not guess. Look at your last 3 days. When did you actually ship good work? When did you stare at the screen? Once you identify your peak windows, usually you have 1 or 2 good ones a day, you must treat them like diamonds. They are scarce, they are valuable, and they must be defended. The peak fence. Once you know where your peak is, you build a fence around it. This is the deep work window protection protocol. During your peak window, you are unavailable. You do not schedule meetings. You do not check email. You do not hop on a quick call. You must be ruthless here. If your peak is 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and someone tries to book a status meeting at 9:30, you decline. You move it to 2 p.m. You explain that you have a hard conflict. You do not have to explain that the conflict is with yourself. During this window, you follow the hard first rule. You start with the most difficult, demanding task on your list. You do not ease into it. You open the document, you set the timer, and you go. You use the peak equals production mantra. Peaks are for shipping. They are not for browsing, researching, or organizing. They are for producing the core value of your job. Weaponizing the dip. The biggest mistake people make is fearing the dip. They hit that afternoon slump and they panic. They think, I'm losing it, I need to push harder. No, you need to switch gears. The dip is not a defect. It is a feature. Your brain needs to downshift. The strategy here is to handle dips without panic by switching to lighter tasks on purpose. When you feel the energy drop, you don't stop working. Remember, this is a 12-hour day, but you change the type of work. This is where you put the clearing the deck tasks. This is where you put the admin, the expense reports, the routine follow-ups, and the low-stakes meetings. You can answer email while you are tired. You can organize files while you are foggy. By moving these tasks to the dip, you are still being productive, but you are matching the task intensity to your energy supply. You are weaponizing the dip to clear the administrative debt that accumulates during the day. The two-window strategy. To maximize a 12-hour day, aim for the two-window strategy. You likely have a morning peak and a secondary, smaller peak later in the day or early evening. Use the first window to create. This is for the blank page, the new code, the strategy document. This requires the heavy lifting. Use the second window to refine. This is for editing, polishing, and finalizing. It is easier to edit existing work than to create from scratch. By splitting the work this way, you use your freshest energy to break ground and your secondary energy to pave the road. Think of Benjamin Franklin. He didn't just work all day. He had a rigorous schedule of blocks. He had time for deep work, time for shallow work, and time for review. He understood that structure beats chaos. He didn't rise to the level of his goals, he fell to the level of his schedule. If Ben Franklin respected his energy limits, you should too. Troubleshooting the map. What happens if your map feels wrong? You might think you are a night owl, but when you actually track it, you realize your late-night work is slow and sloppy. Be honest. If your peak blocks feel like sludge, you have misidentified them. Remap using real outcomes. What if your morning gets hijacked? You walk in, and there is a crisis. The day starts reactive. The fix is to set a hard boundary. Communication opens at X time. If you check your phone at 7 a.m., you have lost the morning. You have let the world into your head before you have staked your claim on the day. Keep the gate closed until your first deep block is done. What if you have to do deep work during a dip? Sometimes deadlines don't care about your circadian rhythm. If you must do heavy lifting when you are tired, you have to rely on the focus cycles from the previous chapter even more heavily. Shorten the intervals, increase the recovery, but whenever possible, move the heavy lifting to the peak. The feeling of flow. When you get this right, the difference is shocking. You will finish a high-impact deliverable before your first major dip. You will look at the clock at 1 p.m. and realize you have done more real work than most people do in a week. You will have fewer days where you feel busy but accomplish nothing. An excellent outcome is completing 2 protected deep blocks most days. Your rework will drop because you made your key decisions when your brain was at its sharpest. You will end the day strong, not because you have infinite energy, but because you saved your easiest work for your hardest hours. You are building a day that flows. You are surfing the waves of your own biology. But there is a danger in flow. You might find a groove in your peak window and decide to stay there. You might decide to hammer on the same specific type of analytical problem for 6 hours straight because you feel on. This is a trap. Even if you match your energy perfectly, your brain has another failure mode. It gets bored. Not the I want to watch TV kind of bored, but a specific neural fatigue that comes from overusing one specific mental circuit. You can burn out a specific part of your brain while the rest of it is still fresh. You are pacing your energy, but you are not pacing your content. To truly master the 12-hour day, you need to learn how to switch, not just when you work, but what you work on. You need to learn the art of rotation. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to keep the engine running by changing the fuel. Chapter 6, Task Rotation. Imagine you're at the gym. You walk over to the bench press, load up the bar with a heavy weight, and start lifting. You do a set, then another, then another. You keep going for 4 hours straight. What happens? Your chest muscles fail. You can't lift the bar anymore. If you keep trying, you will drop the weight on your neck. But here's the interesting part. Your legs are fine. Your back is fresh. You are exhausted in one specific area, but the rest of your system still has capacity. Your brain works the same way. We tend to think of mental fatigue as a general fog that descends on everything, but that is rarely true until the very end of the day. Usually, you have fried one specific neural circuit, the one responsible for complex logical synthesis, or the one responsible for creative empathy, while other circuits are sitting idle. The silent killer of the 12-hour day isn't just the hours, it's the monotony. It is the stubborn insistence on hammering the same mental muscle until it fails. This chapter is about preventing that failure. We are going to learn a strategy that allows you to keep working without overheating. It is called task rotation. It is the difference between a day that ends in a crash and a day that ends with a controlled landing. The art of the switch. Most productivity advice tells you that context switching is the devil. They tell you to focus on one thing until it is done. And generally, they are right, if you are working for 4 hours. But if you are working for 12, that advice is incomplete. If you try to write code or draft legal briefs or design architectural plans for 12 hours straight, your quality will nosedive by hour 6. You will start making mistakes that you won't even see until tomorrow. Winners don't power through this specific type of fatigue. They rotate. They understand that different tasks draw from different mental resources. Heavy creative work drains your executive function and your willpower. Coordination work drains your social battery. Administrative work drains your patience but requires very little deep thinking. The strategy here is to alternate the intensity of your tasks. You work in a clean block on a heavy task until you feel the diminishing returns kick in. Then, instead of stopping work or scrolling social media, you switch to a different type of work. You switch from creation to organization. You switch from solving to documenting. This controlled change refreshes your brain. It allows the heavy lifting muscles to recover while you are still being productive with your light lifting muscles. The myth of the single track. You might be thinking, but isn't switching tasks just procrastination? It can be. If you switch because you are bored or because the work got hard, that is weakness. That is impulse switching, and it creates chaos. But if you switch because you have hit the end of a scheduled block and you need to preserve your stamina for the long haul, that is strategy. There is a pervasive myth that grinding on one project all day is the peak of productivity. It feels heroic. You tell people, I spent 12 hours on the slide deck. But be honest, how good were the slides you made in hour 11? Likely, they were garbage. Long days need pacing. They need variety. You cannot run a marathon by sprinting the first 10 miles. You have to vary your stride. The test for whether a switch is good or bad is simple. Does it protect your deliverable? If switching to a lighter task for an hour allows you to return to the heavy task with fresh eyes and renewed energy, then the switch was a weapon. If switching just distracts you and makes you lose the thread, it was a mistake. We're going to build a system that ensures your switches are always weapons. The 3 buckets of intensity. To execute this, you need to categorize your work. You cannot just grab random tasks from your to-do list. You need to sort them by cognitive load. We will use a simple 3-bucket model. Bucket A is deep creation. This is your highest intensity work. It is the writing, the coding, the strategy, the complex problem solving. This is the work that burns fuel fast. Bucket B is refinement. This is medium intensity. It is editing what you already wrote. It is structuring data you already collected. It is planning the next week. It requires focus, but it doesn't require the same raw creative horsepower as bucket A. Bucket C is maintenance. This is the lowest intensity. It is answering routine emails, filing expenses, updating Jira tickets, and scheduling meetings. This is work you can do even when you feel brain dead. Your goal is to sequence these buckets so that they support each other. You never schedule 2 bucket A blocks back to back without a break or a rotation. You use bucket B to land the plane after a heavy creative session. You use bucket C to fill the dips in your energy that we identified in the last chapter. The rotation plan. Here's how you do it in practice. Take 5 minutes at the start of the day. List your tasks and label them A, B, or C. Now, look at your day blueprint. Assign your A tasks only to your protected deep work anchors. These are the non-negotiables. Then, place your B tasks immediately after your A blocks. This is a powerful sequence. You spend 90 minutes creating something A, and then you spend 60 minutes refining it or planning the next steps, B. This allows you to stay engaged with the project but lowers the cognitive load. You are still moving the ball forward, but you are downshifting the engine. Finally, place your C tasks into the dips and the communication windows. Never ever waste a morning peak window on a bucket C task. That is a crime against your own productivity. Crucially, you must add a rule: no switching inside a bucket A block. If you are in a deep work session, you do not rotate. You stay there until the timer rings. Rotation happens between blocks, not inside them. The stuck switch protocol. Sometimes, despite your best planning, you will get stuck. You will be in the middle of a bucket A task, and you will hit a wall. You will stare at the cursor and nothing will come. The temptation will be to force it, to sit there and suffer. Or the temptation will be to open YouTube. Instead, use the stuck switch protocol. First, write down the obstacle in one sentence. I don't know how to transition from the intro to the body. I can't figure out why this function is returning null. Writing it down gets it out of your loop. Then, switch to a predefined lighter task for one timed block. Go answer emails for 20 minutes. Go organize your desktop. Do something that gives you a sense of completion. Often, while you are doing the mindless work, your subconscious will untangle the knot in the heavy work. When the timer goes off, return to the heavy task. But don't just dive back in. Read the sentence you wrote about the obstacle. Often, the solution will be obvious now. You return with a single next action, not a vague hope that things will be better. Rotation pairs. To make this even easier, you can use standard rotation pairs. These are sequences that work for almost everyone. The first is create, refine, ship. You do a block of creation A, then a block of editing B, then a block of sending it out or filing it C. This follows the natural decay of your energy and results in a finished product. The second is solve, document, coordinate. You solve a hard problem, A, then you document the solution, B, then you tell the team about it, C. This keeps your momentum building without draining the same system. You are moving from internal focus to external communication, which uses different parts of your brain. Avoiding the fragmentation trap. There is a danger here. If you rotate too much, you end up with a day full of fragments. You do 10 minutes of this, 15 minutes of that, and nothing ever gets finished. This is the popcorn brain effect. To avoid this, limit yourself to 2 or 3 major rotations per day. Do not spin the wheel every hour. Stick to your blueprint. The goal is to finish the A task, then move to the B task. If you find yourself constantly rotating away from the heavy work before it is done, that is not rotation, that is avoidance. You also need to be careful about context. When you switch from a heavy coding task to an email task, you dump a lot of short-term memory. If you just jump back into the code an hour later, you will waste time trying to remember where you were. Always end a block with a resume point. Write down exactly where you were and what the very next step is. Next time, write the validation logic for the user input. This acts as a bookmark for your brain. It prevents the slow restart. The rhythm of endurance. When you master task rotation, the feeling of the day changes. You stop fearing the afternoon. You know that even if your creative brain is fried by 4 p.m., you have a plan for the rest of the day that doesn't involve staring blankly at a screen. You can switch to bucket B or bucket C tasks and still contribute value. You will find that you have less mental fog. You will have fewer blocks where you look back and wonder what you actually did. Your quality will go up because you are never forcing a tired brain to do work it isn't capable of handling. But there is one thing that can break even the best rotation plan. You can have your buckets sorted, your sequences lined up, and your energy mapped, but if your environment is actively fighting you, none of it matters. If your phone is buzzing every 3 minutes, you cannot do bucket A work. If your desk is a chaotic mess of papers, you cannot find the clarity for bucket B work. You have built the system inside your head. Now you must build the system outside of it. You need to construct a physical and digital space that defends your focus so you don't have to waste your precious energy fighting off the world. In the next chapter, we are going to build a fortress. Chapter 7, Focus Fortress. Look around you right now. Look at your desk. Look at the tabs open on your browser. Look at your phone sitting within arm's reach. You might think these are just tools, inert objects waiting for your command. You are wrong. They are active combatants. In the context of a 12-hour day, your environment is either a fortress that protects your mind or a casino designed to bankrupt it. If you are trying to execute high-level cognitive work in a space built for distraction, your motivation does not matter. You can have the best plan, the perfect energy map, and the strongest will, but if your phone buzzes every 4 minutes, you will fail. You are trying to meditate in the middle of a construction site. This chapter is about silence. It is about building a physical and digital moat around your mind so that you can work with quiet power rather than constant interruption. The high cost of a leaky ship. You probably believe that a quick check of your email takes 30 seconds. You think you can glance at a notification, see that it's not urgent, and return to your deep work with zero penalty. This is the single most expensive delusion in the modern workplace. Distraction is not just lost time, it is lost depth. Every time you switch your context, from your code to Slack, from your report to a text message, you create a tension residue. A part of your brain remains stuck on the distraction. It lingers like a mental aftertaste. When you return to your work, you are not operating at 100% capacity. You are operating at 80%, then 60%, then 40%. In a standard 8-hour day, this is bad. In a 12-hour day, it is fatal. Distraction scales with hours. As the day gets longer and your natural fatigue sets in, your defenses lower. Small interruptions that you could ignore at 9 a.m. become irresistible at 4 p.m. If you don't build a fortress, your day will bleed out through 1,000 tiny cuts. You will reach the end of the day feeling exhausted, yet when you look at your deliverables, you will realize you spent half your time reacting and only half your time building. Winners do not find time for deep work. They defend it. They understand that focus is a fragile asset that must be protected by walls, not just wishes. Losers beg for quiet. Winners build barriers. The myth of the iron will. You might be telling yourself that you don't need to change your environment because you have self-control. You think, I'll just ignore the notifications. This is a strategy that works perfectly until it doesn't. Ignoring a distraction requires active cognitive effort. Every time your phone lights up and you choose not to look at it, you burn a tiny unit of glucose. You pay a tax. Over 12 hours, those taxes add up to a massive deficit. By the evening, your willpower is bankrupt and you will click on anything that moves. There is also the myth that you need to be reachable all the time to be valuable. This is a lie born of insecurity. If you are reachable every second of the day, you are productive in none of them. You become a router, simply passing information back and forth, rather than a creator who adds value. And let's destroy the multitasking myth once and for all. You cannot multitask. You can only task switch rapidly. When you try to do 2 things at once, you are just doing 2 things badly. You are stripping the gears of your mind. A 12-hour day requires a smooth engine, not a transmission that is constantly grinding. Engineering friction. The solution is not to train your brain to resist temptation. The solution is to remove the temptation. We call this distraction friction engineering. The principle is simple. You want to increase the friction for the wrong behaviors and decrease the friction for the right behaviors. You want to make checking social media a hassle, and you want to make starting your work effortless. Your environment is an external system. When your internal discipline gets tired, and it will, your environment steps in to hold the line. We are going to build this fortress in 3 layers: physical, digital, and social. Layer 1, the physical moat. Start with your visual field. If you can see it, it can distract you. Your desk should not be a storage unit for unfinished business. Every pile of paper, every sticky note, and every random object is a visual trigger that pulls at your attention. Clear it. When you are in a deep work block, the only thing on your desk should be the work itself. The most dangerous object in your physical space is your phone. It does not belong on your desk. It does not belong in your pocket. If you are serious about a 12-hour day, your phone belongs in another room, or at the very least, in a drawer on silent mode. If you have to stand up and walk across the room to check it, you have added friction. That small barrier is often enough to stop the mindless impulse loop. Layer 2, the digital gate. Your computer is a window to the entire world, which is a problem when you need to focus on one document. You need to reduce the entry points for distraction. This starts with the one-screen rule. When you are in a deep work block, you have one primary window open. Not 5, not 10, 1. If you are writing, you have the document open. If you are coding, you have the IDE open. You do not have your email open in the background, just in case. You must be aggressive here. Use website blockers. Turn off all non-essential notifications. There is no reason for a news app to ping you while you are trying to solve a complex problem. If you rely on willpower to not open a new tab, you will lose. If the tab is blocked by software, you stay on track. Layer 3, the social boundary. This is the hardest layer because it involves other people. You need to create clear availability rules. You cannot be interrupted every 10 minutes with a quick question. Those questions destroy your flow. You need a visible signal. In an office, this might be big noise-canceling headphones. In a remote setting, it is your status set to deep work, do not disturb. You must train the people around you to respect the signal. This isn't about being antisocial, it is about being professional. You are establishing a coordination container. You tell your team, I am heads down until 11 a.m. I will answer all questions between 11 and 11:30. Most people are terrified to do this. They think their boss will be angry. In reality, most bosses care about output. If you disappear for 3 hours and come back with a finished deliverable, nobody cares that you didn't answer a Slack message instantly. The capture protocol. Even with a fortress, the enemy sometimes comes from inside. You will be working, and suddenly your brain will scream, "Did I pay the electric bill?" or "I need to email Dave." These are intrusive thoughts. If you act on them, you break your flow. If you try to suppress them, you waste energy worrying that you will forget. The solution is capture, don't chase. Keep a physical notepad next to you. When an intrusive thought appears, catch it. Write it down in one line. Pay electric bill. Then immediately return to your task. You have offloaded the worry. You know it is written down, so your brain can let it go. You do not chase the rabbit. You review your capture list only during your scheduled admin blocks or breaks. Protecting the start. The most critical moment of your day is the first 10 minutes. If you start your day with noise, your whole day inherits that noise. If the first thing you do is scroll through social media or panic read your emails, you have surrendered your attention before you have even begun. You must protect your start. Your workspace should be set up the night before. The document you need should be open. The tools you need should be laid out. When you sit down, there should be zero friction between you and the work. You want to slide into the stream, not hack your way through a jungle of setup and distraction. The Steve Jobs anchor. Think about Steve Jobs. He was not known for adding things, he was known for removing them. He was obsessive about focus through subtraction. When he returned to Apple, he didn't add more product lines, he slashed them. He understood that to build something great, you have to say no to 1,000 other things. Your workspace should reflect this philosophy. Eliminate before you optimize. You don't need a better to-do list app, you need fewer apps. You don't need a faster way to check email, you need to check email less often. Troubleshooting the walls. There will be breaches in your fortress. Sometimes people will ignore your boundaries. They will tap you on the shoulder or call your phone. You need an escalation path. You need to define what constitutes a true emergency. If the building is on fire, interrupt me. If you can't find a file, wait until 11 a.m. You might also face digital relapse. You will find yourself unblocking the sites you blocked because you need them for 5 minutes. This is a slippery slope. If you find yourself bypassing your own security, you need to increase the friction. Make it annoying to distract yourself. Change the password to a random string of characters that you have to look up. Make the distraction cost more effort than the work. Beware of rigid perfectionism. If a distraction slips through, if the delivery guy rings the doorbell, do not let it ruin your day. Use the restart ritual. Handle the interruption, then write down exactly where you were. Take a breath and dive back in. Do not use the interruption as an excuse to abandon the block. The silent victory. When you build a proper focus fortress, the result is a strange and beautiful silence. You sit down and the world recedes. You are no longer fighting off a swarm of gnats. You are alone with your work. Your deep blocks feel calmer. You enter the zone faster because there are no tripwires in your path. You will notice that your output per hour skyrockets. When you aren't paying the restart tax every 10 minutes, you can do in 1 hour what used to take 3. Your 12-hour day stops leaking. You ship more and you stress less. You have now constructed a formidable machine. You have the system to govern your decisions. You have the blueprint to map your time. You have the focus cycles to manage your energy. You have the rotation strategy to keep your brain fresh. And now you have the fortress to protect it all. You are capable of a massive day. You can wake up tomorrow and crush 12 hours of work with a level of control you have never felt before. But there is one final enemy that we haven't discussed. It is not distraction. It is not poor planning. It is not even fatigue. It is the subtle, creeping accumulation of damage that happens when you win the battle but lose the war. You can run this system perfectly for 1 day. You can maybe run it for 3, but if you don't understand the difference between being tired and being depleted, you are driving a car that is slowly shaking itself apart. The check engine light is about to come on, and if you don't know how to read it, you are going to crash just when you think you are winning. We need to close the loop. We need to make this sustainable, not just for a day, but for a lifetime. Chapter 8. Sustainable Loop. Anyone can work 12 hours once. You can drink enough coffee, blast enough loud music, and summon enough adrenaline to white-knuckle your way through a single day of heroic effort. You will feel like a titan when you close your laptop at midnight. You will look at your output and tell yourself that you have finally cracked the code. Then, 3 days later, you will wake up unable to form a coherent sentence. You will spend the next 2 days in a fog, moving at half speed, undoing all the gains you made during your hero day. This is the amateur cycle. It is a boom and bust pattern that prevents you from ever building real momentum. One monster day is easy. A clean, high-output week is rare. If you want to master the 12-hour day, your goal is not intensity. Your goal is repeatability. You are not trying to set a personal record for suffering. You are trying to build a standard of performance that you can sustain for months without destroying your health or your mind. This chapter is about closing the loop. We are going to install the maintenance protocols that keep your system from decaying. We are going to learn the difference between being tired, which is normal, and being depleted, which is dangerous. We are going to build a feedback mechanism that catches burnout while it is still a whisper, before it becomes a scream. The delayed bill of burnout. The reason most high performers burn out is that they misunderstand the timeline of fatigue. You think that if you overwork today, you will feel it tomorrow. That is not always true. Burnout is a delayed consequence. It is like credit card debt. You can spend energy you don't have for days or even weeks without feeling the immediate pain. You feel productive. You feel unstoppable. You think you have cheated the system. But the bill always comes due, and when it does, it comes with interest. The crash that follows a period of unstructured overwork steals more momentum than the overwork created. You lose days to lethargy, irritability, and brain fog. Winners understand that capacity is an asset that must be protected. Losers burn their capacity for a short-term ego boost. To prevent this, we need to shift your mindset from maximum effort to sustainable intensity. This means working hard, but working inside guardrails. It means recovering on schedule, not by accident. It means treating your energy like a bank account where you never let the balance drop below a critical threshold. The anchor of consistency. The first pillar of your sustainability loop is sleep consistency. Notice I did not say sleep duration, though that matters. I said consistency. Your body runs on a circadian clock that regulates your hormones, your energy, and your focus. If you go to sleep at 11 p.m. one night and 2 a.m. the next, you are essentially giving yourself jet lag every few days. You are turning your week into a biological casino. In a 12-hour workday, stability is everything. You cannot predict the chaos of the work, so you must predict the state of your physiology. You need to anchor your sleep and wake times with military precision. This stabilizes your energy across the long haul. When your body knows exactly when it will power down and exactly when it will power up, it becomes more efficient at generating alertness during the day. If you treat sleep as an afterthought, something you do only when the work is done, you are building your skyscraper on a swamp. Rebooting the system. The second pillar is movement microdosing. When you sit for 12 hours, your body enters a state of stagnation. Blood flow decreases, oxygen to the brain drops, and fatigue metabolites build up. You feel groggy not because you have worked too hard, but because you have moved too little. You need to integrate movement into the breaks we established in the Focus Cycles chapter. This is not exercise. You are not trying to build muscle or burn calories. You are trying to reboot the system. A 2-minute walk, a set of air squats, or simply standing up and stretching acts as a physiological reset button. It clears the mental cobwebs and prepares you for the next block of focus. Think of it like clearing the cache on your browser. If you never clear it, the system slows down. If you microdose movement between your deep work blocks, you keep the processing speed high from morning until night. The daily dashboard. You cannot manage what you do not measure. Most people drive their bodies without a dashboard. They have no idea they are overheating until the engine smokes. You are going to install a signal scan. This is a fast, brutally honest assessment that you perform every single day. It takes less than 60 seconds, but it saves you weeks of lost time. You're going to rate 5 specific metrics on a scale of 1 to 5. First, rate your focus quality. Was it sharp or was it scattered? Second, rate your mood stability. Were you calm or were you an emotional roller coaster? Third, rate your irritability. Did small problems make you angry? Fourth, rate your sleep quality. Fifth, rate your crash severity. Did you end the day with energy or did you collapse? The rule is simple. 2 bad days in a row triggers a system adjustment. If your signals are flashing red for 48 hours, you do not push through. You do not grind harder. You back off. You reduce the scope of your work. You prioritize recovery. You fix the leak before the ship sinks. This is not weakness. This is damage control. Tired versus depleted. One of the hardest skills to learn is distinguishing between being tired and being depleted. They feel similar, but the response to them must be opposite. Tired is a surface-level sensation. It is the natural result of effort. When you are tired, you can still focus if you try. You can still maintain emotional control. You can still execute the plan. The correct response to being tired is to rely on your system. You trust your focus cycles, You trust your task rotation, and you finish the day. Depleted is different. Depletion is a structural failure. When you are depleted, you cannot start tasks. You stare at the screen, and the words don't make sense. Your impulse control is gone. You snap at people you care about. You feel a deep, hollow dread about the work. The correct response to depletion is to stop. Immediately. If you try to push through depletion, you are not working. You are vandalizing your own psychology. You are creating a negative association with work that will make it harder to start tomorrow. When you identify depletion, you trigger an emergency protocol. You cut the day short, you sleep, and you live to fight another day. The weekly upgrade. A system that does not evolve is a system that dies. Your life changes, your workload changes, your energy changes. If you try to run the exact same schedule every week forever, it will eventually break. You need an adaptation loop. This happens during a weekly review. This is a 15-minute meeting with yourself where you look at the data from your signal scan and the results of your work. You ask 3 questions. First, what shipped? Look at your deliverables. Did you actually finish the things that mattered, or were you just busy? Second, what leaked time? Identify the top 2 distractions that stole your focus. Was it a specific person, a specific app, a specific time of day? Third, where did the energy crash? Look for patterns. Do you always crash on Tuesday afternoon? Do you always lose focus after the weekly staff meeting? Based on this data, you make one system change for the next week. Just one. Maybe you move your deep work block an hour earlier. Maybe you add a longer break on Wednesdays. Maybe you increase the friction on a distracting website. You are not overhauling your life. You are tuning the engine. Over time, these small adjustments compound into a system that fits you like a tailored suit. Protecting the off switch. The final component of sustainability is the shutdown ritual. You must have a hard boundary where the work stops. In a 12-hour day, this is critical. If your work bleeds into your recovery time, you are stealing from tomorrow. You need a ritual that signals to your brain that the shift is over. Close the laptop. Write down the first task for tomorrow. Say a specific phrase to yourself, like system offline, and then actually stop. Do not check email on your phone. Do not think about the project in the shower. You must protect your off time like it is sacred ground. This is where your capacity is rebuilt. If you are half working while you are watching a movie, you are neither working nor recovering. You are in a gray zone of low-level anxiety. Winners are fully on when they are on and fully off when they are off. The long game. If you implement this loop, the outcome is profound. You stop fearing the work. You know that you have a safety net. You know that if you push too hard, your signals will catch you. You know that if the schedule isn't working, your weekly review will fix it. You will start to see your capacity grow. Tasks that used to exhaust you by noon will now feel manageable until 6 p.m. You will be able to sustain high output for weeks at a time without the drama of a breakdown. You will become reliable. But there is a danger in reliability. You can become so good at the machine-like execution of your day that you forget the human element. You can become a robot that processes tasks efficiently but loses touch with the bigger picture. You can master the schedule but lose the identity of who you are outside of the productivity. We have built the mechanics. We have the engine, the fuel, the map, and the maintenance plan. Now we need to integrate this machine into your life. We need to talk about how to be a high performer without becoming a ghost to your family and friends. We need to talk about how to turn this temporary discipline into a permanent state of being. The final step is not about what you do, it is about who you become. Chapter 9, Long Game Mastery. You have reached the end of the manual, but you are only at the beginning of the work. Up until this moment, you have been a student of the system. You have learned the mechanics, the theories, and the protocols. But knowledge without execution is just intellectual entertainment. You did not pick up this book to be entertained. You picked it up because you have ambition that exceeds your current capacity. You picked it up because you are tired of the gap between what you want to achieve and what you actually ship at the end of the day. Now comes the hardest part. Now you have to turn this intellectual framework into a living, breathing reality. You have to take these concepts off the page and install them into your nervous system. This final chapter is not about adding more tricks. It is about integration. It is about locking the system in so tight that it becomes part of your identity. We are going to connect every wire we have laid so that when you flip the switch tomorrow morning, the machine hums to life. The machine you built. Let's look at the vehicle you have constructed over the last 8 chapters. It is not a collection of random productivity tips. It is a cohesive operating system designed for one specific purpose: sustained high output without biological collapse. You started with system first, accepting that willpower is a volatile fuel and that rules are the only thing that remove the daily negotiation. You built a day blueprint, a 3-lane highway that keeps your deep work from crashing into your meetings. You installed the engine of focus cycles, learning to pulse your effort in intervals rather than grinding your gears into dust. You learned the leverage of energy timing, placing your hardest work in your peak windows and your shallow work in your dips. You mastered task rotation to prevent mental overheating, switching gears strategically to keep the car moving. You built a focus fortress, engineering an environment that defends your attention so you don't have to fight a war every time you try to think. And finally, you set up the sustainable loop, the feedback mechanism that ensures you can do this for weeks, not just for a day. The core principle holding this all together is simple. Long days do not require superhuman willpower. They require a smart system. If you rely on being tough, you will break. If you rely on the machine, you will endure. The shift from drifter to captain. When you run this system, something fundamental changes in how you relate to your work. You stop being a passenger in your own life. Most people are drifters. They wake up, check their phone, and let the world dictate their agenda. They react to emails, they react to Slack messages, they react to their own fatigue. They are constantly on the defensive. You are now playing offense. You gain control over your day because you have pre-decided the outcome. You stop drifting and start finishing. You gain control over your energy because you are no longer gambling with your focus. You know exactly when to push and exactly when to recover. But the biggest shift is in your identity. You stop being the person who talks about what they are going to do, and you become the person who ships. Consistency breeds confidence. When you look back at a week where you executed 5 perfect day blueprints in a row, you don't have to pump yourself up with affirmations. You have proof. You know you are capable because you have the receipts. How to be a human, not just a worker. There is a danger in high performance. You can become so obsessed with the machine that you lose your humanity. You can become a ghost to the people who love you, physically present but mentally absent. This system is designed to prevent that. The biggest complaint from partners and families of ambitious people is not that they work too much. It is that they are never fully there. They are checking emails at the dinner table. They are staring blankly at the TV while worrying about a deadline. This is half presence, and it destroys relationships. Your shutdown ritual is the cure. Because you have a hard stop, and because you have a system that captures all open loops, you can actually turn off. When you leave the fortress, you leave the war behind. You don't bring the battlefield home. Your presence becomes high quality because your work is contained. Predictability also reduces friction. When you have a chaotic schedule, the people around you never know when they can talk to you. They feel like they are walking on eggshells, afraid to interrupt your grind. With this system, they know the rules. They know that during your deep work anchors, you are unreachable. But they also know that when the coordination window opens or when the day ends, you are all theirs. Boundaries do not push people away. They create a safe space for connection. The new standard. So, what can you actually achieve now? You can run a 12-hour day without self-destruction. That is the promise. You can wake up, execute a plan that includes deep work, meetings, and admin, and hit the pillow at night feeling tired but not depleted. You will ship real deliverables with less drama. The output per hour of your work will rise because your focus is clean. You won't be spending 3 hours to do 1 hour of work because you are distracted. You will make fewer mistakes because you aren't forcing critical decisions when your brain is in a fog. Most importantly, you will stay consistent. You won't have to start over every Monday because you burned yourself out over the weekend. You won't live in the cycle of guilt and panic. You will improve through reviews, not through self-loathing. The compound interest of discipline. Here is the secret that the pros know. It gets easier. The first week you run this system, it will feel mechanical. You will feel the friction of setting the timer, of forcing yourself to stop for breaks, of ignoring the urge to check your phone. It will take effort. But systems compound. One small tweak in your weekly review becomes a permanent upgrade. Maybe you realize that you need a longer buffer before lunch. You make the change, and suddenly, every day after that is 5% smoother. Maybe you realize that a specific website is your kryptonite, so you block it permanently. That is a lifetime of saved attention from one decision. Over time, the day blueprint becomes automatic. You won't have to spend energy planning, you will just slide into the groove. Your body will learn the rhythm of the focus cycles. You will naturally start to focus when the timer starts and naturally relax when it stops. The effort required to run the machine drops, but the output stays high. This is mastery. Mastery is when the discipline turns into freedom. The protocol for tomorrow morning. You are done reading. Now you must act. Do not wait for Monday. Do not wait for the right time. The system starts now. Here is your 1, 2, 3 immediate action plan for tomorrow. Step 1. Write tomorrow's day blueprint. Do not do this in your head. Write it down. Choose exactly one must-ship deliverable. If you get nothing else done, this is the thing that makes the day a win. Step 2. Lock 2 deep work blocks in your peak windows. Look at your energy map. Find your best hours. Draw a box around them. These are for your must-ship deliverable. Nothing else gets in. Step 3. Set your focus cycle timer and pre-schedule your breaks. Decide on your ratio, 50-10, 60-10, whatever works. Commit to the timer. Lock in your non-negotiables immediately. Define your communication windows. If you don't, your email will eat your day. Set your fixed shutdown time. If you don't, your work will eat your life. And commit to minimum cycle compliance. You do not skip breaks. The line in the sand. We have reached the end. You have a choice. You can put this book down, nod your head, and go back to the way you were working. You can go back to the chaos, the panic, the late-night guilt, and the burnout. You can continue to be a victim of your own lack of structure. That is the loser's loop. It is comfortable, familiar, and destructive. Or you can take the winner's vow. It is simple, hard, and clean. I don't rely on mood. I rely on my system. I protect recovery because I protect output. I ship what matters, then I stop on purpose. This is your line in the sand. You are not trying to be a hero. You are trying to be a professional. Run the system once tomorrow. No heroics, no drama, just execute the blueprint. Then, wake up and run it again the next day. That is it. That is the secret. There is no magic pill. There is only the design, the discipline, and the durability to keep going. You have the machine. Now turn it on.